Hello and welcome back to the channel NPA Discovery. If you love fascinating biographies, hidden truths, and the behind-the-scenes drama of Hollywood, then you're in the right place. Today, we're diving deep into the career of a man who shaped late-night television for decades, Jay Leno. But let's be clear from the start, this isn't just another story about comedy and cars. This is a story about ambition, betrayal, resilience, and the strange twists of fate that built, and nearly destroyed, one of the most iconic careers in American television history. And yes, as the title suggests, we're going to talk about that bizarre moment when Leno actually walked off a live set. But before we get to that explosive scene, we need to understand how Jay Leno got to that point in the first place. His rise wasn't smooth. His reign was often bitterly contested. And his legacy? Well, it depends on who you ask. If you're new here, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us bring you more powerful stories like this one. Jay Leno was born on April 28, 1950, in New Rochelle, New York. His family wasn't wealthy, glamorous, or connected to Hollywood in any way. His father was an insurance salesman, the kind of man who worked hard, stayed quiet, and believed in steady paychecks. His mother was a Scottish immigrant, tough, practical, and no-nonsense. Together, they tried to instill discipline in their son. But Jay, by his own admission, was a bit of a handful. Mischievous, restless, and always cracking jokes, he seemed less like a model student and more like the class clown who couldn't sit still. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The very qualities that frustrated his teachers ended up being the raw material for his career. But back then, nobody believed in him. In fact, one of his high school guidance counselors gave him a piece of advice that haunted him for years: sometimes students are better off doing jobs and menial tasks. Maybe you should stick with McDonald's. Imagine hearing that as a teenager, that your future was flipping burgers. It stings. And for Leno, it planted both a seed of anger and a seed of determination. Now, here's where the irony kicks in: that counselor wasn't entirely wrong. Because it was actually at McDonald's that Leno found his first stage. The company hosted regional talent shows, and one of his managers nudged him, "You're funny, Jay. Why not do a routine?" So he did. And he won, by roasting McDonald's itself. This moment wasn't just a laugh. It was proof. Proof that he could stand in front of a crowd and make people feel something. Proof that he wasn't destined to just work the fry station forever. The power of defying expectations. Let's pause here. Why is this story important? Because so often in life, we are defined by the low expectations of others. Teachers, bosses, even family members may tell us we're not good enough, not talented enough, not destined for greatness. But history is full of people who took those words as fuel. Leno's counselor thought he'd never escape a menial job. Instead, he built a career worth hundreds of millions of dollars, entertained millions of viewers for decades, and carved out a reputation that few could touch. The lesson: when someone underestimates you, don't shrink. Rise. The rough start in comedy. With his McDonald's victory behind him, Jay set his sights on real comedy clubs. His first audition was at a venue called the Bitter End in Greenwich Village, New York. This was a legendary spot, the kind of place where careers were either born, or killed. But fate, once again, had a cruel sense of humor. The day of his audition, Leno had a sore throat. A helpful stranger backstage handed him some chloroseptic spray. Not realizing you were only supposed to use it once or twice, Jay sprayed it 10 times. His entire mouth went numb. Picture this: he walks on stage, eager to impress, and sounds like he's talking through a mouthful of marshmallows. The audience, famously tough New Yorkers, were not impressed. His audition was a total flop. But here's where luck and persistence collided. The club owner saw something in him, even through the failure. He told him to come back next week. And that second audition, he nailed it. Underscore 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 underscore. Real life example, turning embarrassment into opportunity. If you've ever failed miserably at something you cared about, you know that sinking feeling. But think of Leno's story here. The disaster wasn't the end. It was just the messy prologue to a win. We often romanticize success as being a clean upward climb. In reality, it looks more like this: stumbles, mistakes, humiliations, but also resilience. Leno's willingness to come back after bombing his first shot is what separated him from the countless others who quit. Family shock and the first big gig. After landing his first gig, Leno faced another obstacle, one that was, frankly, his own doing. Proud of his success, his father invited their entire extended family to his show. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even kids. The problem? Jay's material wasn't exactly family-friendly. Imagine standing on stage, telling edgy jokes, and realizing your religious uncle and two young nieces are staring at you in horror. That's exactly what happened. It was mortifying. His uncle never came back to see him perform again. But again, here's the takeaway: comedy, at its core, isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about finding your audience. And once Jay stopped worrying about whether his family approved and started focusing on the crowds who did laugh, his career began to build momentum. The tragedy that changed everything. But at the height of Led Zeppelin's success, life dealt Robert Plant devastating blows. In 1975, while vacationing with his family in Rhodes, Greece, Plant and his wife, Maureen, were involved in a horrific car accident. Plant was left with severe leg injuries, nearly crippling him and leaving him in a wheelchair for months. Touring plans were derailed, and the future of Led Zeppelin hung in the balance. Yet, Plant's resilience was unmatched. He pushed himself through agonizing rehabilitation, determined to return to the stage. Just as he began to heal, an even greater tragedy struck. In 1977, his young son Carrick contracted a sudden viral infection and died at only 5 years old. Plant was shattered. He considered walking away from music forever, unable to bear the weight of grief. But ultimately, he channeled his pain into his art. Songs like All My Love became haunting tributes to the child he lost, reminders that behind the rock god image was a father with a broken heart. The end of Led Zeppelin. The late 1970s were turbulent for the band. Despite Plant's tragedies, Led Zeppelin tried to carry on, but fate had other plans. In 1980, while preparing for an American tour, drummer John Bonham, Plant's close friend and musical brother, died after a night of heavy drinking. The news devastated Plant. Without Bonham, Led Zeppelin could not exist. And so, the band that had changed the face of rock music officially disbanded. For Plant, it was the end of an era, but also the beginning of a painful identity crisis. Who was Robert Plant without Led Zeppelin? Many expected him to continue the legacy, but Plant resisted. He feared becoming a nostalgia act, trapped in the shadow of his younger self. Instead, he bravely forged a solo career, determined to carve out a new artistic path, even if it meant leaving some fans behind. Reinventing himself. In the 1980s, Robert Plant surprised critics by experimenting with a completely different sound. His solo albums, Pictures at 11, The Principle of Moments, and Now and Zen, showcased his willingness to evolve. No longer just the wailing rock god, Plant embraced synthesizers, world music influences, and softer vocal styles. He proved that he was not bound to the past but was always searching for something new. And while he occasionally reunited with former Zeppelin bandmates for special concerts, Plant refused to permanently revive the group. To him, Led Zeppelin was a beautiful but completed chapter, something that should remain untouchable. This decision, though frustrating to some fans, was part of Plant's genius. He chose growth over repetition, integrity over easy money. His later collaboration with Alison Krauss on Raising Sand in 2007 stunned the music world, blending his voice with bluegrass, folk, and Americana sounds. The album won 6 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year, proving that Plant was not just a relic of the past, he was still a creative force, still capable of surprising the world. The Conan O'Brien controversy. In 2004, NBC made a bold announcement: Conan O'Brien, the quirky, Harvard-educated host of Late Night, would eventually take over The Tonight Show. The deal was clear: Jay Leno would step aside in 2009. Leno agreed publicly, but the truth is, he never wanted to leave. After all, his Tonight Show dominated ratings for years, beating Letterman and silencing critics who once doubted him. When 2009 came, Jay gave an emotional farewell, handing the desk to Conan. But behind the scenes, NBC executives grew nervous. Conan's offbeat humor appealed to younger audiences, but ratings dipped, especially with older viewers. NBC panicked. Their solution? Move Leno into a new primetime show at 10 p.m. while Conan held The Tonight Show at 11:35. The plan backfired spectacularly. Affiliates complained, viewers were confused, and soon NBC asked Conan to move his show to 12:05 a.m. Conan refused, famously declaring that The Tonight Show should never start tomorrow. The standoff ended with Conan leaving NBC entirely, and Leno sliding back into his old chair. This fiasco painted Leno as the villain in the eyes of many. Though he claimed he never intended to steal back the show, the public perception stuck. For the first time in his career, Jay wasn't just the nice guy with the big chin, he was the man who took The Tonight Show twice. The final goodbye. By 2014, the winds of change finally caught up with Leno. He had led The Tonight Show for over 2 decades, making him one of the longest-serving hosts in history. But this time, there was no messy battle, no network games. He announced his retirement gracefully, and Jimmy Fallon was set to take over. His final show was a mix of laughter and genuine emotion. A parade of celebrities came to pay tribute, but it was the heartfelt moment with his longtime bandleader and crew that brought Leno to tears. For a man rarely seen showing vulnerability, it was a powerful send-off. When the curtain fell, Jay Leno walked away with dignity, leaving behind a complicated but undeniable legacy. He wasn't the sharpest wit like Letterman or the wildest performer like Conan, but he was steady, dependable, and consistent, the king of Middle America's late-night television. Life after late night. Unlike many hosts who fade quietly into the background, Jay Leno reinvented himself. He leaned into his lifelong passion, cars. His series Jay Leno's Garage became a huge success, showcasing his massive collection of rare vehicles and his deep knowledge of automotive history. Fans discovered another side of Leno, not just a comedian, but a true enthusiast and storyteller. He also returned to stand-up, hitting comedy clubs and theaters across the country, just as he had done in his early days. And while he occasionally appeared on television, he seemed freer, more at ease without the nightly pressure of ratings battles. But life after The Tonight Show hasn't been without trials. In 2022 and 2023, Leno suffered 2 serious accidents, one involving a car fire that left him with severe burns, and another motorcycle crash that injured his ribs and collarbone. Remarkably, his resilience shone through. Within weeks, he was back on stage, making jokes, even about his own injuries. That's Jay Leno in a nutshell. No matter how many setbacks, controversies, or critics came his way, he always got back up, dusted himself off, and kept the show going. His career wasn't built on scandal or edge, it was built on persistence.